The next Mafia game is coming much sooner than you think. It took 3 years to develop Mafia The Old Country from start to finish. According to the vice president of product at 2K Games, Mafia The Old Country was greenlit 3 years ago and development began. This checks out because on August 29, 2022, 2K Games officially announced work had started on an all-new Mafia project. According to Alinea Analytics, Mafia The Old Country has sold over 1.2 million copies to date, 643,000 on PlayStation, 337,000 on Steam, and 117,000 on Xbox. These statistics show that there's a strong demand for the Mafia game franchise and linear story-driven games that can be completed under 14 hours. 2K Games in their free ride blog post said, "We'd like to thank you, our passionate and fiercely loyal community, for making the launch of Mafia The Old Country a success." And on September 2nd, 2025, the cast members of Mafia TOC went to the Czech Republic for a celebration party to celebrate the success of the game. If Mafia The Old Country bombed and sold poorly, this party would not have occurred. It appears Mafia TOC made Take-Two Interactive, 2K Games' parent company, a profit after all expenses were deducted, positioning it as one of 2K's strongest single-player launches in recent years. Mafia The Old Country selling well is both good and bad for Mafia game fans. It's good that Mafia The Old Country was a success because now Hangar 13 is safe from shutting down, unlike Volition, which was closed after its Saints Row reboot didn't sell well. If Mafia TOC sold poorly, then it would have been the end of the Mafia franchise and Hangar 13 games. You see, Mafia The Old Country was a make it or break it for Hangar 13. After the release of Mafia 3, Hayden Blackman, former president of Hangar 13, decided it would be a wise decision for his company to develop multiple intellectual properties, none of which were related to the Mafia IP. Ultimately, all these IPs got cancelled. In November 2021, Take-Two canceled an unannounced $53 million project that Hangar 13 was working on. Mafia The Old Country was Hangar 13's last Hail Mary to prove to 2K Games and Take-Two that they were still capable of delivering a commercial success. And fortunately for them, things worked out in the end. Mafia The Old Country selling over 1.2 million copies proves there's still a strong demand for the Mafia IP. On the other hand, it's bad that Mafia The Old Country was a success, because now all future Mafia games may likely follow the same formula, with a linear story that you can complete in a day or two, with a dead open world where you can't kill any NPCs. The idea of creating Mafia IV, a sequel to Mafia III, in 1970s Las Vegas with an open world is most likely off the table, now that Hangar 13 has proven they can whip up a linear game in 3 years, lower the price, and expect a commercial success. In Mafia Definitive Edition, a cigarette card collectible introduced Los Andes, a fictional city which is a mixture of Los Angeles and Las Vegas. This would have been the name of the city for Mafia IV had Hayden Blackman chosen to create a 1970s Las Vegas Mafia game instead of creating brand new IPs. If Mafia IV, sequel to Mafia III, took place in 1970s Los Andes, the music licenses alone would be expensive. 2K Games saved a lot of money by making Mafia The Old Country a prequel set in 1900 Sicily. Having few weapons, few vehicles, few NPCs, no radio music, and a small game map meant less work for Hangar 13 developers and faster development time. Mafia TOC has a total of 14 automobiles and 11 horses. The horses practically all have the same gameplay, just different skins, so it's really one horse. And since the car radio didn't go mainstream until the early 1930s, there are 0 licensed songs when driving a car in the game, so no radio music. Instead of radio music, the game's original soundtrack plays when driving between missions, of which there are only 12 soundtracks. Unlike open-world sandbox games, linear games in general take less time to develop and cost less. There's also the added bonus of your game no longer being compared to Grand Theft Auto and being called a GTA clone. Anyone that compares a linear game to an open-world sandbox game is either stupid or trying to get engagement. Take-Two Interactive, the parent company of Hangar 13, has a lot of money due to the success of GTA Online, but they won't willy-nilly give 2K/Hangar 13 money if they're going to risk it on creating brand new IPs that will most likely flop at release. Creating a new video game franchise comes with a lot of risks. 2K Games, the publisher, and Take-Two Interactive, the parent company, will be less incentivized to take risks now that gamers have shown a strong demand for linear-focused games that take less than 14 hours to complete. Currently, the economy is in a slump. It doesn't matter what country you're in, it seems to be a global issue. lots of companies are downsizing and laying off employees. Now is not the time to take risks and create ambitious projects like a Mafia IV set in 1970s Las Vegas. Nick Baines, the current president of Hangar 13, has stated he doesn't want to see employees get laid off. In May 2022, the same month he became president, Nick Baines, in a virtual meeting with employees, stated that he aimed to greenlight a sequel to Nero, codenamed for Mafia The Old Country, while it's still in development. His goal is to avoid repeating the mistakes of the previous president, which led to employee layoffs after project completions. Baines said during the meeting that the plan is for Hangar 13 to focus almost exclusively on both the Topspin 2K and Mafia franchises moving forward. At the Future Games Show Summer Showcase, Nick Baines said, "Mafia The Old Country is both a prequel to the original Mafia trilogy, and it also sets things up for what might be to come in the future."
Mafia The Old Country is both a prequel to the original Mafia trilogy, and it also sets things up for what might be to come in the future. And it also sets things up for what might be to come in the future. And it also sets things up for what might be to come in the future.
According to a current job listing, Hangar 13 is looking for a principal AI designer to craft new archetypes that fit the vision of a Mafia game. They're also looking for someone with experience working with Unreal Engine. It's safe to say work has unofficially started on the next Mafia game. This means development for a Mafia 2 prequel or a Mafia 2 remake may have already started now that Mafia The Old Country has wrapped up. The next Mafia game after Mafia TOC could very well be a direct sequel to Mafia The Old Country set in Empire Bay, surrounding the Vinci Moretti War. Perhaps they'll call the game Mafia The New Country. Maybe we'll play as Leo Galante, Frank Vinci, Carlo Falcone, or a brand new character. They already have the character models for Leo Galante, Frank Vinci, and Giuseppe Balmendetti. These are 3 of the 6 returning characters in Mafia The Old Country. We saw a glimpse of how Empire Bay looked in 1907 at the end of the game. It would be very easy and cost-effective for Hangar 13 to reuse these game assets. Then after developing the Mafia 2 prequel, Hangar 13 can remake Mafia 2. All they would have to do is reuse the game's map and update it for the 1940s and 1950s. After a Mafia 2 prequel and a Mafia 2 remake, Hangar 13 would be in a good position to convince 2K Games that they can deliver a sequel to Mafia 3, Mafia IV set in 1970s Las Vegas, and make it open world. I wouldn't be surprised if Nick Baines plays it safe by making the next Mafia game a Mafia 2 prequel, a direct sequel to Mafia The Old Country. Hangar 13 and 2K Games are fully aware that Mafia game fans have been begging for a Mafia 2 remake for years. The Mafia 2 remaster is a disgrace to the original game and has not been fixed 5 years later. The game is still riddled with bugs and glitches on all platforms. Mafia 2 needs the same treatment as the first Mafia game, a remake, but hopefully with a lot of cut content restored. A direct sequel to Mafia The Old Country set in 1900s Empire Bay surrounding the Vinci Moretti War on Unreal Engine would be a good compromise and quench the thirst of those asking for a Mafia 2 remake. The main reason why we got Mafia The Old Country in the first place, a prequel set in 1900s Sicily, and not Mafia IV, a sequel to Mafia 3, is because of Hangar 13's previous president's decisions. For those who don't know, Mafia 3 sold in or shipped to stores 4.5 million copies in its first week, making it one of the fastest selling games for 2K Games. In 2017, Take-Two Interactive and 2K Games were so happy with the financial success of Mafia 3 that they gave Hayden Blackman, the former president of Hangar 13 Games, the option to develop Mafia 4 set in 1970s Las Vegas or start something completely unique, a new intellectual property. Unfortunately for Mafia game fans, Hayden chose the latter. From 2017 to 2022, Hangar 13 went on to develop the following games: Rhapsody, a spy game about subterfuge in 1980s Berlin, Germany; Voltron, a class-based co-op action game in the vein of Destiny 2; and Mosaic, which was a loot-based ARPG. All 3 of these IPs were ultimately cancelled. On November 3, 2021, Take-Two revealed in its earnings call with investors that it had cancelled a $53 million unannounced project. This cancelled project was a video game called Voltron, a co-op action game in the vein of Destiny 2 that was in development since 2017 by Hangar 13 Games.
Greetings and welcome to the Take-Two second quarter fiscal year 2022 earnings call.
GAAP net revenue increased 2% to $858 million, while cost of goods sold increased 6% to $457 million. Cost of goods sold included a $53 million impairment charge related to our decision not to proceed with further development of an unannounced title in our pipeline.
In May 2022, after the cancellation of Voltron and Mosaic, Hayden Blackman stepped down as president of Hangar 13 Games and was replaced by Nick Baines, who now serves as the current president. Under Nick Baines' leadership, Hangar 13 released Top Spin 2K25 and Mafia The Old Country. Now that Mafia The Old Country has sold well, Take-Two may give 2K and Hangar 13 a larger budget to develop the next Mafia game. Although Mafia The Old Country sold well, it didn't sell in or ship to stores 4.5 million copies in its first week like Mafia 3. Therefore, there's no incentive for Take-Two and 2K to greenlight Mafia 4, a sequel to Mafia 3. Mafia The Old Country sold 1.2 million copies. The next Mafia game is likely to be smaller in scope than Mafia 3, but larger than Mafia The Old Country. If you enjoy linear focused games, another game like Mafia The Old Country is good news. On the other hand, if you enjoy open world games and the freedom to do this and that, then this is bad news. Moving forward, all Mafia games may be similar to Mafia The Old Country with a restricted game world. It's possible we won't see a natively open world game like Mafia 3 until the global economy is doing better and 2K games can afford to take risks. There's also the possibility there will never be an open world Mafia game from 2K games ever again. Moving forward, expect linear story-driven Mafia games that can be completed under 14 hours pumped out every 3 years. If everything goes smoothly and there's no delays, the next Mafia game, Mafia The New Country, a Mafia 2 prequel, will most likely release 3 years from now in 2028. We should see a teaser trailer a year prior to the game's release in 2027. For the latest Mafia game news, updates, and content, subscribe to Mafia Game videos.